Let's take a moment to breathe and reflect. This week, we released the pressure to get it all right and reclaim the power of being real. Here's what we were able to unpack. On Monday, you don't have to be polished to be powerful. We discussed that. We actually unhooked self worth from flawlessness and started really practicing grace. And then on Tuesday, we talked about approval isn't your piece, you guys. We broke up with people pleasing and chose truth over performance. And then on Wednesday, talked about focus, right? Hustle isn't holy. We remember that we are not machines and our presence is greater than productivity. And then on today, the inner critic isn't your compass. We are rewriting the internal script from shame to really self compassion. And here's what we walked away with. And here's what we're going to walk away with. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to prove your value. And you don't have to show up, or you just have to show up with presence and grace. Listen, today's title, The Inner Critic Isn't Your Compass. As you see on the thumbnail, the voice that says you're not good enough, guess what? It's not your identity. Okay, we're going to focus on rewriting perfectionism or perfectionistic inner dialogue and really emotional pressure. So this lesson is really here to address your inner critic, okay? That really keeps you in emotional survival mode. You'll learn how to shift from shame-based self-talk to identity-based truth, okay? So stay with me as we go on to have this conversation. But do me a favor, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel because this is where we're going to be watching the life lessons at. If you have a friend and you're watching this in the Elevating Life group, make sure you invite some friends, all right? And recommend this, share it on your Facebook page because I really think these life lessons are transformational. All right. So here's my question for you today. What is the loudest voice in your head? What if the loudest voice in your head is in wisdom? It's programming. And what if it's time to really as fire it as your compass? Okay. What if it's time to fire this inner critic, right? Who is silently guiding you to keep you safe. But guess what? You don't need safety anymore. You don't need survival. You need thriving. Okay. So, why am I doing today's session? Because I spent years working with people who let their inner critic lead them, right? This inner critic really wore a mask of discipline, but their language or its language was of shame. And that's how I could distinguish when I'm talking to my clients if this is their wisdom or if it's their wound. And so I have been able to convince a lot of people that this inner critic is really trying to move you towards perfectionism, and it was just protecting you. But now you can be the driver of your seat. So today, I want to help you rewrite your internal voice with grace and compassion, of course, right? Because that is what these life lessons are for, right? To really help you to start to bring some compassion and some understanding and some trust into your life so you can start seeing the transformation that you so desire and that is there. Okay, so today's disclaimer: this session isn't about silencing your thoughts at all. To silence your thoughts, I think it'll take a long time to really sit and meditate, a lot of self-awareness, right? A lot of stuff. But in the beginning, this is really not about silencing those thoughts. It's about listening to them differently. Okay, you don't have to believe everything that sounds like your voice. Not every internal message, you guys, deserves your agreement. Now, this is coming up in my spirit, so I need to say this. Now, yours may not come up as words. Maybe it's a feeling, right? Maybe it's this intuitive feeling that, you know, something's going wrong, or maybe it's this feeling that, you know, you're not enough, right? So it's not coming up in words, but it's showing up in how you behave, how you move, and how you interact. Okay. And so I want you to know that we all have different sensory gifts, right? So some of us, we can hear, some of us feel, right? Some of us can smell different smells when things are going on, and all of those sensories are there for a reason. But mind you, they've been programmed. Remember, I say you're not broken, you've been programmed, right? And so a lot of your old programming was keeping you in survival, all right? But now you want to thrive. And I know thrive may sound like one of those being words. So you just want to live, right? Live life to its fullest. So good afternoon. All right. Today we're reclaiming your emotional energy. And as we're doing that, I want to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sheila Little, licensed master of social work, right? Been a clinical therapist for 20 years. I call myself an emotional strategist and business therapist, right? You are listening to Life Lessons. Life Lessons is a part of Project Life, and Project Life is where we turn theory into practice. So I want you to drop a word in the chat. Let me know how you're feeling today, or just grab a napkin or something and just write down a word, right? How are you feeling? And if it's not a feeling that aligns with how you want to be feeling, then how about this? How about next to that, you scratch out that word and you write an empowering word. How do you want to be feeling today? All right. So who's this session for? This is for you if you feel like nothing you do is ever good enough. All right. This is for you if you've rehearsed conversations in your head to avoid messing up. And this is for you if you're emotionally drained by your own self-talk. Okay. So here's our powerful quote. The voice that says you're not enough, guess what? That's not your identity. All right. That is your powerful quote. The voice in your head that says you're not enough, that's not your identity. Okay. So let's talk about it. Your inner critic is really likely or likely to have been born out of survival. All right. It learned to speak from disappointment. It learned to speak from shame or the need to really stay ahead of judgment. All right. So there was this way that you had to be to really survive. And when we're talking about surviving, I don't, some of it was really your life, right? Some of it was in life in general, but surviving the hurt, right? The hurt of disappointment, the hurt of rejection, the hurt of abandonment, right? And so your body sophisticatedly, in a sense, shielded itself, right, in this very integral way to keep you from feeling the disappointment. But here's the thing. You still feel disappointed, right? You still feel disappointed. You still feel let down. You still feel rejected. And and you feel like you're moving in a way to avoid this, but you end up running into it because guess what? Where our attention goes, our energy flows. And so today we're talking about energy and emotions. All right. We're talking about energy and emotion. So again, your inner critic was likely born from survival. But here's the problem. We started thinking that this voice was us, right? That is the problem, right? So this voice that was really developed by your culture, by society, and by your circumstances, right? To really get you to be sitting here, right? Listening to this life lesson, right? You have assumed that that's your voice. And I'm here to say, no, that is not you. That is your programming. That is what you were programmed to think. That is what you were programmed to do. And we can rewrite that. So today we stop really following a compass that only hears fear. All right. And we really start to listen to the voice that knows your truth. Okay. That knows your truth. And I'm always going to share something about a client because I think that it's important for you guys to know that I work with a lot of people. I've worked with thousands of people, right? And there's this thing that happens when I'm working with people that I feel like is so phenomenal. And I think Oprah names it the aha moment, right? So a client told me, I hear you're not doing enough in my head every day. All right. When we found out the origin of where that came from, it wasn't discipline. Guess what? It was guilt passed down from a child. All right. From her childhood. She didn't need another task. She needed a new voice. And so in our work together, we really worked on her building her now voice, right? Her now voice to not fight the program, but to have compassion for it, to understand it, and what language she was going to use to really start to, in a sense, befriend this inner critic, right? Befriend it and let it know that, hey, you're not a threat to me. I love you, but I just don't need you, right? And as we started to move her attention, right, to something different, and we taught her how to really respond to this, what she noticed is that voice started to calm down. So here's your heart check-in. I want you to ask yourself, what belief have your inner critic been repeating, and who gave it that script? All right. So what belief have your inner critic been repeating, and who gave it that script? Now, for a long time, and you hear me talk about this a lot, my inner critic is two, right? It was two. The I'm not enough, right? And I needed to do all of these things, right, to really check off the box. So I felt like I needed to be in a relationship. I needed to make X amount of dollars. I needed to live in so many square foot house. I need to drive this type of car. I needed to be well educated. I need to keep myself up, right? All of these things I felt like I needed to be enough. And if one of those boxes wasn't checked, or let me even go further, if I checked off a box, it really didn't matter because it was this insatiable need, right? So this unenoughness was still calling me. The other thing that I feel like my inner critic that I really had to build a different relationship with was this, in a sense, this secret, right? Like in a sense, this invisibleness that I felt as a kid. Now, many of you who know my story know that, I was born into two people, right, who made me a secret, right? So nobody knew who my dad was. Well, actually, my dad was this other guy. I had a legal father, and then I had a biological father. Well, my legal father wasn't a part of my life. He just paid child support. But my mom, the person who cared for me, knew this secret. And so it put a it put like this need for me to perform for her. So I'm like, what do I need to do to show her that I'm a good daughter, right? Like, who do I need to be to show her that I'm a good daughter? Because she kind of handled me with like a long handle spoon, was like, I can't let you get too close, or in our engagement, she was like very judgmental. So that inserted this belief of really not being enough. And I worked harder and harder. I mean, to the point where I just started providing for my family. And, it ended up working for me in the end, right? Because it made me, more resilient and things like that. But as I got older, I felt that script come up like nobody sees you, nobody recognizes you, right? Nobody, yeah, it's just like this unseen thing. And I needed to then learn how to see myself. Okay, I had to learn how to see myself. So my question to you is, what belief have your inner critic been repeating, and who gave it that script? Now, who gave my inner critic that script? I would definitely say it was my mom. I love my mom now. You guys know that I love my mom very deeply. I have put myself in her shoes, understanding what it felt like to have a kid, your second child at 19, by an individual who, you know, you really wasn't supposed to be with, and, trying to keep that under wraps, over the years, and not really having the emotional intelligence or the capacity, right, to deal with the mental and emotional stuff, really just kind of withdrew her as a parent. And as you know, I always say, I don't feel like a parentless child, because that is where my grandparents stepped in, Bernice and Roosevelt, right? And they raised me as one of their own. All right. But even in raising me as one of their own, I can say that, it was something to see my mom care for my brothers and not care for me. Right. And it was just this kind of nuance of like, well, why doesn't she want me? And I can remember crying to my grandparents about that. Right. Like, well, why won't she take me? And then it got to a point where I was like, I don't want her to take me. I want to stay with y'all. I mean, I would hide my shoes. I would hide my clothes. Like, listen, if you don't want me, you don't got to come get me. Okay. All right. So I want to walk through 5 truths that will help you recognize where your inner dialogue may be lying to you, and how to really reclaim your emotional clarity. Is that okay? All right. So here's 5 truths I need you to know. 1, the inner critic is often a collection of voices that never knew the real you. All right. Why didn't it never know the real you? Because you was young, right? It only knew the environment or the system in which you came up in, right? So this programmed brain, it didn't really know like the real you. So many of us are echoing the words of our teachers, our caregivers, our culture, and our trauma, not our truth. All right. And this voice in your head might sound familiar, but it isn't faithful to your identity. All right. So you don't have to keep carrying criticism that was never yours to begin with. Okay. Number 2, Self-talk really shapes your self-worth. All right. The way you speak to yourself really becomes what you believe about yourself. I know that we hear this a lot. All right, we hear this a lot. Become your own best friend, right? Become your own best friend. And that's bigger than just going to get your nails done or doing a spa day or hanging out with your friends. It's really the conversations that you have with yourself. All right. Even this negative Nancy, even this annihilator, right? What type of conversation are you having with that part of you, right? Is it a compassionate conversation, or is it one where you're defending yourself? Is it one where you are, feeling down and feeling shamed about yourself? We have to rewrite that. Listen, the way you talk to yourself becomes what you believe about yourself. And your internal narrative really sets the tone for how you show up in the world. If your self-talk is full of shame, your self-worth will always feel conditional. All right. If your self-talk is full of shame, your self-worth will always feel conditional. Number 3, your nervous system can't relax when your mind is hostile. Okay. The the main goal of my work, and I call myself an emotional strategist, and a big part of me being an emotional strategist is doing that, right? Helping you find safety or develop safety or be safe, right, in your body, in your nervous system, so that you can manifest the life you want. Listen, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, an emotional disconnection. If your nervous system is wired on those two, it's going to be very hard to manifest the life you want. And even if you have it, it's going to be very hard to sustain it, right? So you're going to always be hustling, always be pulling teeth, always be doing things to really even sustain a life because you're in survival mode. All right. Listen, you can't feel peace in your body if your brain is consistently criticizing you. All right. The inner aggression really keeps your nervous system braced in survival mode. All right. So peace begins with the voice you use when no one else is listening. All right. Peace begins with the voice you use when no one else is listening. And I think it's so important because, like I said, we can talk the talk. We can see people on social media, but when you're on your own, right? When you're in your room, when you're in the shower, right? When you're driving by yourself, like, how are you speaking to yourself? All right. How are you speaking to yourself? Now, I talk about so there's you speaking to you, there's you, the witness. All right. The witness of your thoughts, right? Of the thoughts that come in your mind. So you have the you that's actually speaking, right? Speaking in your mind, right? And all of that. Then you have the witness of you that's witnessing your thoughts. All right. So when we witness these thoughts that come to us, right, for whatever reason, maybe our dopamine levels are low, maybe we're feeling some emotion, maybe we're emotionally constipated, maybe it's just the season, right? Maybe it's around your cycle, maybe it is some tough things going on that's really creating, right, this frequency where you're able to hear these thoughts. How are now you, the driver of the seat, responding to that? All right. Are you believing that is true? Are you believing that's true about you? Or are you just listening like, I'm eavesdropping, right? I'm eavesdropping to hear, what's in my head. Now, I can say this. If you experience heavy, heavy, heavy a critic, and you've been working on yourself, right? And that you've been doing things, and all of a sudden one day you wake up and it's just like a heavy witness day where you are hearing, all of these voices, or you're feeling, right? Or you feeling all of these emotions. That could be a time for you really to rest, right? Really to rest, because what's happening is that's the old version of you doing its last cast, right? It's like, hey, before I let go, let me try to pull you in, right? And so it gets louder and it gets tougher during those times of breakthrough, similar to if you were running a race and you got to the last leg. That last leg is harder to run than that first leg was, right? And so you're kind of like, oh, I got to get to the end zone, right? And it feels like I can't do it. I can't do it. You're hearing I can't do it. I can't do it. But you're still putting one foot in front of the other, even though your body is like, stop. We can't do this, right? And if you've ever lifted weights, if you've ever ran or did a marathon or anything like that, you understand that when you're on your last lift, when you're on that last leg, it can get a little more tough and mentally, right? And so you have to stand up as the individual that wants to hit the goal and really just witness it and be neutral to it. All right. Number 4, you don't have to earn the right to rest from your own judgments. All right. You don't have to earn the right to rest from your own judgments. Listen, you don't need to finish everything, prove anything, or outperform guilt before you can be kind to yourself. All right. You don't have to justify your peace. Rest is your right, not your reward. I want to say this again. You don't need to finish everything. You don't need to prove anything or outperform guilt before you can be kind to yourself. I do know that a lot of times we use kindness as a reward, right? So I'm going to be kind to myself, or I'm going to do this once this is done. No, you can be kind to yourself in the midst of it all. All right. In the midst of it all. And last but not least for this section, you get to talk to yourself like someone you trust. All right. You get to talk to yourself like someone you trust. So imagine speaking to yourself with the same tone you use with someone you love. All right. That's not a weakness. That is wisdom, you guys. That is wisdom. So self-trust really grows in the soil of compassion. All right. And so in the soil of self-compassion, and so we really need to be compassionate with ourselves so our body can learn that, this is a vessel you can trust. I'm an individual that you can trust, right? And so we do that by how we talk to ourselves. And I just say, like, think about a friend, right? Like, the friend that you tend to be more vulnerable with, the friend that you tend to trust more, is the friend that is a lot more consistent, a lot more emotionally available, right? A lot more compassionate with you, right? Allows you to open up, right? And things like that. And so you want to, in a sense, turn that and be that for yourself. All right. Listen, not every voice in your head is your identity, okay? Because when shame runs your mind, peace can't settle in your body. All right. And this is why that matters. All right. Your freedom begins with how you speak to yourself. All right. Your freedom begins with how you speak to yourself. I had a client that say, when I changed my inner language, I felt less anxiety and more clarity. All right. Less anxious and more clarity. Why? Because she could trust what was going on in her body. She built a different relationship with her body. The Bible says that my people perish for the lack of knowledge. And a lot of times we don't even know that our body is protecting us, right? And so it's similar to, it's kind of like the parent that's like screaming, like, hey, don't do that, right? But the parent was trying to protect you, but may have done it in a way that they were taught, right? And so your program was taught to scream at you, to put you down, right? As a way to get you not to do the thing. And at this grown age of an adult, you need to do this thing, right? You need to do this thing because your life depends on it. All right. Listen, research says that harsh self-talk is linked to anxiety, it's linked to depression and emotional exhaustion. And self-compassion actually improves your emotional resilience. So you don't have to obey the voice of fear. You get to follow the voice of faith. All right. You get to follow the voice of faith. Now, we know that we're talking about energy and emotions. We're wrapping up this week. All right. So I want to talk about 10 truths that I need you to know about this part of this lesson that hopefully is going to help you break through. Again, the inner critic was trained, not born. All right. You wasn't born thinking you was not enough. All right. If you was, you wouldn't have cried when you wanted milk. You wouldn't have cried to get out the crib when your mama wanted you to. If you see kids now, they just like, listen, I'm enough. I'm going to cry till you come get me. I'm hungry. They're going to poop on themselves and all of that. Right. So no child is born feeling like they're not enough. That voice developed over time through experiences, through authority figures, expectations, and pain. But anything trained, guess what? It can be untrained. So you don't have to keep rehearsing an identity you never chose. Number 2, shame is loud, but it's not loyal, you guys. So shame makes a lot of noise when you mess up, fall behind, and slow down, but it never offers comfort. You notice? Right? You notice it never offers comfort, it never offers healing, and it never offers trust. All right. or truth. All right. It never offers comfort, healing, or truth. If it only shows up to punish you, guess what? It's not love, it's fear. All right. Number 3, your body believes what your mind repeats. And this is why it's so important to really start to become aware, right, of what your mind is repeating, and then insert new what belief here, right? And keep reinserting the new belief over and over again, because your body believes what your mind repeats. So the more you think it, the more your nervous system reacts to it as if it was true. Okay. If your thoughts say, I'm failing, then your body responds with, guess what? Anxiety or depression. All right. Anxiety or depression. If it says I'm safe, guess what? Your body responds with calm. So language is the bridge between your thoughts and embodiment. And I would go further to say the language is the bridge because your language is evoking an emotion. All right. So your language is, in a sense, directing and guiding your emotions. And sometimes, uh, more than likely, you had an emotion, right, that gave language its words. Okay. So you may have felt sad and then that triggered a thought, right? So your emotions can also trigger your thoughts. Whatever the case is, that is a bridge between, you and your body, or your thoughts and your embodiment, right? And how you feel in your body. Okay. Uh, Number 4, judgment depletes energy faster than activity does. It's not always what you're doing that exhausts you, you guys. It's what you're saying to yourself while you're doing it. Okay. So if you notice, if you keep saying, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, I'm tired, it's like you're getting more and more and more tired. Okay. One of the things that I do is when I feel myself about to say, why am I so tired, right? I will say, why do I have so much energy, right? Like, in a sense, like I hear that. And then because I know of the law of duality, then I'm going to insert what I want to have, right? Right. And really learning to do that more consistently, to really train the brain that I have the energy and capacity for the life that I want to live, right? And for the experiences that I'm having. Okay. So again, judgment depletes energy faster than activity. It's not always what you're doing that exhausts you. It's sometimes what you're saying, okay, while you're doing it. Inner criticism, guess what? It drains your emotional battery before your calendar ever will. So you have to be compassionate, and compassion actually fuels, and judgment causes a level of fatigue. All right. Number 5, emotional clarity begins with internal safety. All right. You don't, or you can't hear yourself clearly when you're emotionally braced. Okay. It's hard to really hear yourself when you're bracing emotionally, when you are in this emotionally braced state. All right. So the first step to clarity isn't more productivity, you guys. It's feeling safe inside with your thoughts. All right. No matter what the thoughts is, it's whispering to your safe self, to yourself, I'm safe, right? I'm safe as I sit here and I witness this. All right. Listen, peace isn't found in progress. It's actually found in permission. All right. You giving yourself permission to live more, to witness, to be unmoved, okay, to be unmoved. Number 6, grace is a regulator, you guys. Listen, grace isn't just spiritual, it's neurological, okay? So when you speak to yourself with kindness, your brain shifts from survival mode to regulation, all right? From survival mode to regulation. So grace doesn't just sound like, or just doesn't just sound good, it actually heals, all right? Number 7, you don't need permission to really speak gently to yourself. You don't have to wait. Okay. You don't need permission to speak gently to yourself. All right. You don't have to wait until you've earned it or done better. Gentle self talk is available right now, okay, as a choice, not as a reward. So start now, start learning how to really talk to yourself in a more gentle way, all right, because you're worthy of soft words today. And again, as you give, so shall be given to you, right? And guess the first person you're giving to is you. Okay. So when you give yourself soft words, when you give yourself understanding, when you give yourself compassion, when you give yourself trust, right? Then you start to attract that in which you are, right? So we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. And so we wonder probably why we're experiencing a level of disrespect or a level of disregard or misunderstanding. And it's because you're giving yourself misunderstanding, you're giving yourself judgment, you're giving yourself ridicule, right? And so you meet it in the world. Now, I have to say this. You can be the nicest you want to be to yourself, right? And that doesn't mean every person you meet or every engagement is going to reflect that, right? So we do have the what's called the means, right? So most of your interactions will reflect that, but you're going to have some that go way above that, and then you're going to have some that doesn't match it at all, right? Those are not a reflection of you. Those are the end of what we call the bell curve, and they're just, they just don't fit in the means. All right. Number 8, rest requires peace in your language. All right. Again, I'm big on language. If you haven't already, join that affirmation challenge at SheilaLittle.com/affirmations. Why? Because language is so important. You can't fully rest when your thoughts are still fighting you. Okay. If your language is chaotic, then your body will stay tensed even when you lay down. So inner language helps to shape your outer peace. Now, it may take a minute if you're laying down and you're hearing all of this stuff come up for you, but you're training the body as you witness it that it's not a threat, and you can be calm and just breathe, right? Do a box breathe where you're breathing in 4, holding for 4, breathing out 4, right? Holding for 4, right? And just box breathing, right? Or you can breathe in for 4, breathe out for 8, right? And this is just training the body to release more than what you hold in, right? And why is that important? Because we want to teach the body to release. All right. So if I breathe in 4 and I breathe out 8, then that's teaching the body that I want to release more than I'm holding on to. And a lot of us right now are holding on to a lot. All right. And again, I just want you to know that your inner language shapes your outer peace. All right. Number 9, you are not your thoughts. You are the one that hears them. Okay. I just talked about this. You are the witness. All right. You are witnessing a part of your state, a part of your consciousness is being a witness to the thoughts that come up in your mind. Those are not your thoughts. You're witnessing them. Okay. Now, there is the part of you that can entertain that, right? That can go in. And sometimes in a meditative state, you'll find yourself kind of going in like, oh, I do need to. So just say a thought comes up that you witness, like, oh, the clothes need to be done, right? And then you will engage like, oh, yeah, I did say I was going to do those clothes, right? So now you're engaging the thoughts, and that's what make you sometimes feel like they're yours, right? Because some of it is some of the tasks you need to do, some of it can like just come from anywhere, right? But I want you to know that you're a witness of the thoughts and you get the choice to engage. So again, you are not your thoughts, you are the one who hears them. So you do not, or you are not defined by the noise in your mind. You are the observer, you are the chooser, you are the witness, and the most powerful part is you are the the reshaper of those thoughts. All right, you have the power. If it doesn't align with the truth, guess what? You don't have to accept it. You don't have to accept it. And last but not least, self-compassion is not a weakness, it's rewiring. So kindness to yourself is not giving up. It's giving your nervous system a chance to reset. It's science, you guys. It's healing. And guess what? It's necessary for this next stage of your life. So self-compassion is a practice that actually rewires your mind for emotional safety and sustainable strength. All right. If that made sense, put a heart in the chat. All right. If that made sense, put a heart in the chat. And if you want to work with me as your emotional strategist, just DM me and we can talk about how we can work together, or you can just join the project at SheilaLittle.com/project life, right? And get in those coaching labs and be a part of that accountability group where you can have people to hold space for you when sometimes, you just don't have it to hold for yourself. All right. So let's move into our biblical wisdom. Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. All right, listen. Proverbs 4:23. Above all, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Here's the interpretation. Your heart is your inner world, right? And it's sacred. And your internal voice is hostile. Or if your internal voice is hostile, your external life will feel like survival. Okay. The God within you doesn't speak in condemnation, you guys, or condemnate. The God within you doesn't speak and condemn you. All right. This entity speaks to you, or the God in you speaks in correction, wrapped in compassion. Okay. That voice leads you, not lasts you. All right. And neuroscience supports this because it says your brain literally rewires based on repeated language. So harsh self-talks actually activates your threat response, and gentle truths, guess what? It creates an internal safety leading to regulation and clarity. All right. Leading to regulation and clarity. Here's our promise verse for today. Romans 8:1. Therefore, there is no I'm sorry. Therefore, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. All right, listen, guilt may speak, but it is not your guide, you guys. You are not here to rehearse shame. You are here to embody grace. So the God in you, that spirit in you, is not accusing you. It's affirming you, okay? So when your thoughts align with grace, your identity becomes safe again. And neuroscience supports this by saying shame narrows your focus and triggers overthinking, and grace actually expands awareness and restores calm. All right. So grace, when you give it to others, when you give it to yourself, it actually expands awareness and restores calm. Self-compassion literally increases serotonin and emotional regulation. All right. Serotonin levels, we know, is a part of that feel good energy, right? And we want to be able to come back to a regulated state. I'm going to say this. It's not that you shouldn't get angry or sad or anything like that. And we definitely want to make sure that we claim that. And, if you know I have the art of life, be aware of that, live in that, activate that, right? But the art is regulate, right? So we want to then regulate ourselves back to what? To peace and calm. All right. And then T, we want to tune, right? Tune and take action, right? So tune to a safe and social nervous system and really take action from there. All right. So I got a question to ask you. What would you shift in your life if your inner voice aligned with grace instead of guilt? All right. And grace instead of guilt. We know that this week we've been talking about surrendering to perfectionism. Okay. So this week we walked through the journey of releasing, not of responsibility, but the pressure, right? Not of responsibility, but the pressure to be perfect. All right. So we're releasing this pressure to be perfect. So on Monday, we started with the love of self and really exposed the lie that you have to be polished to be powerful. We remembered that worthy is not a reward for getting it right, or it's not a reward for getting it right. It's your origin. All right. And then on Tuesday, we looked at the interactions with others and really broke up with this belief that approval equals peace. Okay. We confronted the emotional labor of people pleasing and really chose connection that really included what? Your truth. All right. Or our truth. And then on Wednesday, we talked about focus and function. All right. We named hustle for what it is. It's a survival mechanism, right? It's not purpose. We unhooked our identity from that output to choose and chose presence over performance. And on today, we reclaimed the energy and emotions by really challenging this inner critic that had too much authority for far too long. All right. So this session was to shift from shame-based self-talk to identity-aligned compassion. Together, guess what? These lessons reminded us that you don't have to earn rest. You don't have to hustle to be held. And you don't have to be flawless to be free. Your inner voice gets to sound like grace. Your rhythm gets to move in peace. Perfection doesn't lead you, presence does. And your presence, guess what, is where your power has always lied. Okay. It has always lived. All right. Has always lived. All right. So let's put this into action, or let's put this into practice. I want you to write down one sentence your inner critic says regularly. And then I want you to rewrite it with an identity-based truth. And I want you to say that new sentence every time the old one shows up. All right. And if you need a journal prompt, I want you to this is your journal prompt. What part of my self-talk still echoes the voice of fear instead of faith? All right. Your affirmation for today: I speak to myself with love and not lack. And then your intention: today, I align my words with grace. And here's your bonus challenge: say something kind to yourself out loud and really, really, really mean it. All right. And really, really mean it. All right. If you're ready to really stop rehearsing guilt and really start building or rebuilding your inner voice, you already know you can come into Project Life at SheilaLittle.com backslash life. All right. Backslash life. And I'm going to do that call, that challenge, and that charge for you. So I'm calling them asking, what script have you been following that you're ready to rewrite. And then number two, the challenge, replace one critical thought today with compassion. And then your charge, the voice in your head should sound like someone who knows that you are already enough. You are already enough. Listen, you're not broken. You're becoming. And your inner voice, guess what? It gets to sound like grace. It gets to sound like grace. All right. That voice that says that you're not enough, it's not your identity. It's your invitation to go deeper. It's your invitation to go deeper. So again, join us today at SheilaLittle.com/life. And I want you to remember this. If you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you on Monday for that life